back on the AM show, and we kickstart our big stories with a focus on the National Democratic Congress. There appears to be calm in the camp of the opposition NDC following an intervention by former President John Dramani Mahama and the Council of Elders of the National Democratic Congress. A meeting was held yesterday to resolve the impasse that ensued after party leadership reshuffled its parliamentary leadership. Today, we discuss this and how the party will turn the current issues around. Joining us, Kofi Adams is Member of Parliament for Buem. We also have Kina Likimani, Programs Manager at Odikro. And of course, joining the conversation, CDD Fellow Dr. John Osai Kwapong. Well, let's start with Kina Likimani, who joins us via phone. Kina, it's been a while since we interacted, and I honestly miss having you on the show. I hope you're well. Hello, Kina.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
My predominant internet provider is Surfline. I don't know whether they've gone belly up. They've been off for 4 weeks, and the NCA is watching on quietly while they mistreat customers. I have to figure out another provider. Yeah.
I have heard about a few challenges. Yes, and it's really refreshing having you back on the show. But I've heard of a few concerns with some of these providers, just to stay away from brand names. So I get exactly where you're coming from. But let's backtrack a bit. When it comes to this NDC melee that now seems to have had the creases smoothened, what do you make of that entire situation where midstream, the 8th Parliament, there is a change in guard with Haruna Idrisu Muntaka and his crew being set aside, well, not all of them, because some were retained, for a new crop of leaders with the thinking behind it. Oh, we need people who are savvy when it comes to the economy, when it comes to infrastructure and all of that, when it comes to energy. What is your take on that?
Well, first of all, I'm not, I think people have been making a lot out of it as though it's something that shouldn't be happening midstream. It's a party changing their leadership. And parties do this all the time, and there's huge disagreements. I think the NDC itself, not I think, there were some years, maybe even a decade ago where, Dr. Obeda Samoa, the NDC has, it's not a big deal. First of all, let's say it's not a big deal. As a parliamentary watcher, and when I view Parliament, the lens I use is any move that happens, is it going to lead to better representation? Are Ghanaians going to get out of Parliament what we want, what we need as per the Constitution and more? I'm hoping any move like this, I hope it works out in the best interest of Ghanaians. Of course, I don't, you snuck in a comment about we need better, they're using sector issues like the economy, energy. These things are important. But also, so are the non-so-called sectors that never get attention. Health, standard of living, youth development and youth employment, education, the safety of children. If one of the arguments being made is that we need more leadership on NDC wants to project better leadership on economy, that worries me a bit, because one of the main things Parliament does predominantly is to, back the executive, especially if the party in power ends the executive, if the majority and the executive belong to the same party. There's a lot of business that comes in Parliament that is solely about finance. And of course, as we are in an economic crisis, this is very, very important. But so are all the other issues that, we need to address about, the freedom of Ghanaians. Anyway, let me not go off on that time. So the thing that I look at is this going to improve the representation and the transparency and accountability from Parliament. And we'll just have to wait and see. Time and time again, there are the signals, Parliament is going to do this, is going to shift here, is going to do whatever, and we don't get what we need out of Parliament. This has been the story for of the Fourth Republic, particularly after the tenure of Honorable Peter Lajisi. So the late Honorable Peter Lajisi. So that's how I pass it. If there's a change in NDC leadership, good for them, I guess. But is it going to be good for us? This is what we need. As for party movements, that happens. It's not alarming at all.
But from a consultative standpoint, well, it was said why there were problems apparently with this decision was that not enough consultation had been done. So there had been concerns about that. But when you
mean not enough consultations within their party?
Within the party, yes, within the party.
No, that's, you see, you are asking me to again. I do not. For me, and I'm being called to this as a parliamentary watcher. Yeah, of course we want consultations, but the main thing is that is any move that any of the party makes to their leadership, to how they conduct business in parliament, is it going to improve? That is the main thing. We spend a lot of time talking about party, the movement within parties, what is going to happen to parties, and it is important. It's very important because we are a multi-party democracy as per our constitution. But time and time again, it seems like we give a lot of air to the parties. They do not, even they will go out of a limb and say, oh, we are improving party democracy. We are doing this within the party. And still, there's quite a lot of corruption. There's quite a lot of, particularly in parliament, there's quite a lot of following the party line as opposed to representing Ghanaians. So I do want to emphasize that, like, party consultations, democracy within parties are important. But all of this ultimately must lead, particularly in parliament, to better representation of Ghanaians. If all of this does not lead to better representation of Ghanaians, having our issues led, parliament is where they are supposed to be on our side. If all of this does not lead to a parliament that is on our side, every single parliament, then it's basically talk for Ghanaians. That's how I think. We have to get we have to get to a point where we get the results, the benefits from parliament, from these movements. So we are sitting here just watching and seeing. Of course, I have no, so I'm just watching. Is that the thing about the minority, all minorities, I think, when they are in parliament, they are very fond of working out. An issue is not going their way because obviously they are not the majority, so they are going to work out. We do not send people to parliament to work out. You speak on the floor and make your objections known. You vote the objection. So even this is a very minor point too, but my issue is, we have to look at all of this. Is this going to benefit Ghanaians? Otherwise, it's movement on a chessboard. The outcome of which is not going to help us any.
Right.
So we need to get to a place where what happens on Parliament benefits Ghanaians, because that's why Parliament is there.
Do hold for me. Let me bring in BWIM Member of Parliament, Kofi Adams, as well, who joins the conversation. Mr. Adams, a very good morning to you, sir. Hello, Kofi. Well, we'll try to work the connection to find out whether he can hear me. Mr. Adams, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
That baritone, unmistakably Kofi Adams. We've seen the background to all of this, how things may not have gone exactly as some people would have had it. The leadership of the party pointing to a new leadership in Parliament and the resultant cracks and crevices that have become manifest. When you look at that resolution from yesterday, the engagement with the former president and the party's engagement, basically, what would you say? What would you make of it? I mean, but for the intervention of the former president, who knows how things could have ended up? I read about Honorable Muntaka and what he put on his social media concerning meeting the former president. But for you, what for now are the takeaways from how things have culminated after all these engagements?
Well, thank you for the opportunity. But even before I answer your question directly, let me extend my greetings to the program manager for Odikru. They have been doing their best to also bring Parliament closer to the people they represent through their various tools they use to assess. However, I disagree with her on two things she raised. One, on being on the side of the party in Parliament and also walkouts. If the Constitution was so minded that MPs should be on their own when they get elected on a party ticket, the Constitution would not have made it impossible for a member of Parliament to decide that upon election on a party's ticket, he or she can decide to say he or she no longer identifies with the party and wants to be independent and still stay in Parliament, or want to cross to another party and still stay in Parliament. The Constitution is so careful to know that when you are elected in the name of an organization, a political party in this case, you are supposed to represent also that political party. So there will be times when the party has a strong position on a matter. That is why we have the whip system, where they will whip every member of Parliament to toe the party line, because the party has a position. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. All democracies, advanced democracies that we sometimes want to reference also, have a whip system where they whip their members to fall in line and to make sure that a particular objective, a particular policy is what they push. So there's nothing wrong with that. Two, walkouts are also tools, democratic tools. Boycotts are democratic tools. Even the national elections can be boycotted. You can boycott an election in its totality. And you don't just walk out. You walk out after stating your position, that you disagree with this. It is only when sometimes it's getting to the time to decide on the vote that one side will say that we do not want to be a party to this process, and therefore we are working now. At that point, they have made their case. And when you check the answers, you will have the record of the position of the side that is working out. So I equally do not see a problem with walkout. We don't just walk out without stating our position. We would have stated our position. So I disagree with her on these 2 points of the party's strength on its members of Parliament and the issues of what? Walkout.
Okay.
That being the case, it doesn't mean that members of Parliament do not also have independence to represent their people. We have motions, we have bills that individuals have sponsored, we have questions that individuals ask, we have statements individuals make. We have so many angles that where even sometimes we disagree within our side. So there is a certain level of independence, and we must not be treated as if we are zombies who are just there to be whipped on every line. When comments are passed by credible groups such as that, it creates a certain problem. So that point having been made, let me now move to
if you do not mind, I'd just like to let Kina come in for some 30 seconds. It will be interesting to find out what her response is to that particular point, so that when we move forward, we'll not come back to this point. Is that okay with you, Mr.
That's fine. That's fine.
Kina, so when he spoke about boycotting elections and the validity of such actions, it took me back to 1992 and the fact that the parliamentary elections were actually boycotted by the MPP. How do you respond to that in some 30 seconds, if you may?
That can be deployed, when people want to express dissent and all that. But my point is that this is what I would like to say. People come into Parliament on a party ticket voted in by the citizens. So you are countable. You belong to a party, and you also are representing Ghanaians. somewhere in between those two, it's like you have two masters, and ultimately the master is the Ghanaian. My point is that, let me give you an example. Like things like, say you have a bill that is about using agricultural lands for mining. And maybe the ideas being put forward, I will keep the Ghanaian farmer. But ultimately, if we pass the bill, it will help all Ghanaians. But people who live in the city have no stake in what is happening. There should be a way for representation of parliament to identify that the MPs, all of them, most of them who come from rural areas, feel this way, as opposed to they can cross party lines. Of course, people will always be party members. We know that. My point is that till date, it seems that the representation on the floor of Ghanaians on the floor of parliament has not, over time, inured to the benefit of the people the people who voted, the people who have created this space for our democracy, the citizens of Ghana. And it is a worry because Parliament is a really powerful institution. It has roles and responsibilities that only Parliament can do in our democracy. There are so many ways to contribute. There are so many ways to represent.
Right.
That sometimes we feel, and I'm not saying this because I'm a Zikram Kina, Ghanaians feel that we are not getting what we want from Parliament. And a lot of times they want to switch off their minds from Parliament, which is not a good thing. So when you come to serve, you are serving your party, you are serving the people of Ghana, you are representing the people of Ghana. We must see that this is being done in our best interest.
Okay.
This was said, no, it's of course sometimes Parliament can go against the people when it is right. When they feel like this is good for us, the people will have to catch up on the issues. We know these things happen.
Okay.
But I don't think that I have gone off the deep end by suggesting that representation on the floor of Parliament has more often than not told a party line over the interests of Ghanaians. Because people have, you see, I'm a feminist, I'm a Pan-African feminist, and I'm a Ghanaian. Somewhere in that, I will always side with Ghana.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? There should be a way, and I know there is a way. People do this in other jurisdictions as well. They stick to their party ideology, they stick to the party line, they find a way of representing Ghanaians. So that in the end, every single cycle of the parliament, things are being done in our best interest.
Okay.
All the time.
So point,
as much as possible. That is what I'm saying.
Point made in that.
I'm trying to say, in Parliament, sometimes it feels like Parliament is subjugating its role to the executive. And of course, we are very happy to see, certain private members. So I'm not happy to see all of them. Issues are different. But Parliament has power. It must take that power. The power that is given it by the Constitution is so unique and so, it's the only one that can really speak for us.
All right, so I think the point is well made when it comes to the role of Parliament. Let me quickly just welcome aboard Dr. John Osai-Kwapong, CDD Fellow. Doc, thank you for joining the conversation.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Great. Just hold for me and let Kofi Adams, Member of Parliament for Buem, make the point he was about to get to before I brought Kina back in. Kofi, back to you, sir.
And I would like to have a conversation with Kina later, and I believe that we will get a conversation.
I'm sure you guys would have a lot to talk about.
Yes, there's a lot that we'll talk about, and I will either she invites me over or I invite her over, and we will have to discuss over some of these issues and see how together we can help present the image of Parliament and what it does, and it will help all of us build our democracy. But having
I will
said
hold you to that, Honorable. Thank you very much.
Let me move now to our issues. I think that we knew we will get to this point. Changes by nature sometimes get resisted, either for good reasons or for bad reasons. Some may use a misstep in the process of the change to kick against the change. Others will just kick against it because they feel it should not happen. So the reaction that came along with the announcement of the changes in leadership, for me, I saw it as something normal. And one or two missteps was taken advantage of to drown the position of those who would not have felt so comfortable with the change home. And it's good that he's drawn the party's attention to a few things that we need to look at and have rules to govern such processes. We do not have clear rules as to how we elect our parliamentary leadership in our party. But we have had a certain process we have used, and therefore, they say convention sometimes.
But you as parties, you have your own constitutions. You can enforce how things ought to be done, right?
No, I'm talking about our party constitution. Our party constitution has not made clear how parliamentary group leadership is elected.
But you've had convention over time.
That's what I'm saying. It is that convention that now is being challenged. So when people challenge, they were challenging as if the authority. They were challenging both the authority and the process. But you could not challenge the authority because there is nothing that says that the party leadership do not have the power to appoint parliamentary leadership. So there really have not been a clear process. And that convention is what has been followed. I think we are growing. We are a growing party, a growing democracy. And it is important that at least to a large extent, we have a laid out process as to how the levels of consultation, who should be consulted in a reshuffle or in an initial appointment. I believe that moving forward, this will be clearly stated. But in terms of the resolution, I knew we will get here. I knew we have elders. I knew we have persons who, when they speak, people will have to listen. And that is what happened. His Excellency, the former President John Dramani Mahama, is a stalwart in the party. He is the only living former president in our party. The Council of Elders equally have a lot of persons who have served this country, some in parliament to the highest position of speaker, like the Right Honorable Speaker Doa Jaho, and others. Alhaji Mama Idrisu and co have been ministers and PNDC secretaries and what have you. So they hold a lot of respect in the party and in the country at large. And so coming together, listening to you and saying, well, you have a case in this area, but you cannot question the authority of the leadership of the party to do ABCD. So let's work together and let's focus on things that affect Ghanaians. That Ghanaians are expecting us as a party to help them out. Even before we win power, there are certain things we can do now. There are certain things we can force government not to do because we feel that it will be so injurious to the people of this country. But if we are not so focused, we get distracted. So we need to get focused to the business of the day, playing our role whilst we work to win power in 2024. So we'll form government in 2025.
Just a quick add-on before I go to Dr. Kwapong. So it is said that those 72 rebel MPs, some of them including the Member of Parliament for Pru, I'm talking about Dr. Kwabena Donko, Pru East, are still insistent that the proper processes have not been followed, and they were casting some aspersions, for lack of a better word, about this entire meeting with the Council of Elders, and now the former president has also stepped in. But what does this do? Does it smoothen those creases when it comes to the party? Yesterday, luckily, the member for Pru East, Honorable Kwabena Donko, sat directly in front of me. He never resisted or raised an objection to anything that was discussed there. So this information... He may not have raised an objection, but did he subscribe to it? Do you know whether he was for what was happening?
He clearly was part of those who said, yeah, in Parliament, when we say yeah, it means we agree. If you disagree with something, you rise on your feet, you'll be recognized, and then you speak. Indeed, the lead person for the petitioners spoke and said everything has been resolved as far as they are concerned. And that is Dr. Ayene. He did not at that point rose to his feet to say that I disagree, I am against maybe the side within our group that says so. But even the situation where we all have to strike 72 itself, there have been doubts because I don't think that there were 72 persons who signed up. But we have crossed that point and we don't need to belabor that point again. What is most important is that the issue have been resolved. The Dr. Atufoson's led group has been accepted, and today, when we meet in Parliament, she will take the front seat and will lead our side. Nobody, including those who have been changed, accepts the fact that they have been changed. They may have concerns with the process, and they may feel that the process, according to them, could have been neater and done better. That you can't take it from them. But they accept the fact that they are no more in leadership. That is a fact that nobody will challenge.
Do hold for me, Kina and Kofi. Let me bring in Dr. John Osai-Kwapong. When you look at how things have panned out in the NDC, we spoke to some of them, and the hope was that they would be able to quickly get over this hurdle, which they appear to have done. But from where you sit, the fact that this has come up so forcefully in the first place, and the fact that obviously there are still some people who feel differently, who may have buried their differences for the collective good, but there's simmering, tension somewhere. What does that do for the party? And was this resolved speedily enough from where you sit?
Yes, I mean, I'm glad it's resolved. I'm glad that it's also been resolved as fast as they could, particularly before Parliament resumed. Yes, these things, even after a resolution, you may have some after effects, lingering, feelings here and there. But I think that, at least from everything that I've read, from everything that I've heard, I believe that the collective good, just as you mentioned, is what is before everybody now, and is what is at stake. When this issue first came up, I think one of the things that I discussed on this show is that, for me, it was very important that at the end of the day, no matter the disagreements, no matter the upset feelings, etc., there was a bigger picture to be looked at, and that bigger picture was the unity of the party as they gear up for 2024. And my main concern had always been, if this thing is not resolved as quickly as possible, what it does to, quote unquote, chip at the unity of the party. So I'm glad I'm glad it's resolved, and I'm sure it would, with time, whatever lingering feelings or residual feelings may be there would all go away, because I'm sure that at the end of the day, all the members of parliament, all the party members know that one thing is very important and overrides any differences that they may have had or any disagreements that they may have had, which is the ultimate victory of the party in the 2024 election. I think it was also very helpful that the Council of Elders walked that fine line between acknowledging that the party leadership, it was within their purview to make these changes to the leadership in parliament, but at the same time also recognizing that the process could have been much better, around things like how it was communicated to the affected parties, etc., and quickly saying, next time, should something like this arise, putting in processes and procedures in place that would ensure that any such decisions would be done in a much improved manner. So I also like the way the Council of Elders, in conjunction with the leadership of the party, have handled this and have, done their very best to smoothen things out with the party caucus in Parliament.
How pivotal do you think was the role of the former president? Reading some of what Mohamed Muntaka, the member of parliament for Asawase, says, To all our supporters within and without, I had a lengthy meeting with my big brother, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, on Saturday evening over the parliamentary reshuffle. I want to first of all thank him for the words of advice and encouragement to me as a younger brother. He goes on to talk about a whole lot more. But how crucial is the role of the former president in all of this? And even as the party gears up to elect a flag bearer, what does it do for his status compared to the other contenders, the likes of Dr. Dufour, the likes of Kojo Bonsu, among others?
I think his role was very crucial and very important. He remains the he still remains the leader of the party until presumably in a new primary, either he's retained or a new flag bearer is elected.
But just hold on there. Correct me if I'm wrong. When an election is lost and the party returns to its normal functions, the leadership of the party, I believe it's either the chairman or the general secretary, right, who takes leadership of the party. So in essence, he is not leader of the NDC.
So you're correct. He's not leader of the NDC, but he plays a very critical and important leadership role in the party. As a former president, as someone who led them to the most recent election, and as someone who, although he hasn't said this officially, as someone who I strongly believe will definitely put his hat in the next 2 weeks when the nominations do open. And so knowing that and knowing how crucial party unity would be to him for any chances that he has in, one, winning the flag bearership, and two, returning to the presidency, that it was also incumbent upon him to be able to have these conversations with the affected individuals and resolve any grievances or any issues that they may have. Because as I keep saying, the last thing that I'm sure the former president wants as he tries to stage a comeback is a party that, quote unquote, is not united, or certain party decisions are beginning to chip at the unity of the party. And so again, I think that his role was very, very important, and I appreciated the fact that he gave audience to the Honorable Muntaka to discuss and talk over whatever issues or concerns that needed to be discussed. And I'm also very happy that when all was said and done, that at least an affected party like Muntaka would come out and make such a statement, because I think the affected parties and how they respond would also be very important in moving forward, right? I mean, they are the aggrieved parties. So if they come out and say, look, we've had lengthy conversations, lengthy discussions with whoever, we accept the decision, we are ready to move on and work for the party, for the unity of the party, let's focus on 2024. I think it helps even improve whatever residual feelings their own supporters may have over the decision that the party took. So I think it was also very commendable that Honorable Muntaka did come out with the statement that he did.
Let me come back to Kina Likimani. What are your thoughts on the approach of the former president and what his impact has been in this entire process?
Well, I think that, there's a thing about, I like to say there's a thing about Ghanaian former presidents and leaders, when they are called upon to fill these roles, they do it quite well. And I mean, we are well aware of President before doing this, only because I think he was older and all that. But we thank the former president for, I think his role is very pivotal, because also he's most likely to be the flag bearer of the NDC in the coming election. So, I think NDC has done a thing, so more power to them, and they've done well, because such changes are never without rancor. And the thing is that there's sabotage everywhere. You know, even you can wake up one day to make a plan and you sabotage yourself. The main thing is that they have a vision. I want to go back to Honorable Adams. In his last comment, he said, ultimately, I think a lot of people are passing this issue through the lenses of elections. But Honorable Adams said, with that within the next, just before elections, these next 18 months or however long we have, there is work to do. And there is real opposition to be going on. And I love that because me, Kina, I am sitting here thinking the elections are very important. They are a key, but very small part of our democratic process. In the crisis that we are in, as you have a president who, even within the economic crisis they have created, has now appointed a minister of pensions who is going to come to parliament for approval. The ever-expanding executive bill. All of these things, there is so much work to be done in opposing this executive and its continuing mismanagement, bringing Ghana to the brink of collapse. So I like the fact that Honorable Adams mentioned that, because that is the key thing here. It's a long way to elections, you people. So it's nice. It is really good. I think NDC has done a thing. I think the Council of Elders have stepped up. Of course, President Mahama was always going to step up. The elections is 18 or somewhere 2 years away, and we are in a big crisis. So I like what Honorable Adams has said about the work that needs to be done.
And just a quick point, especially as you make reference to the august House of Parliament, I'd just like to find out from you, looking at the role that the former president has played and the switch in leadership. Maybe I'll save that point. I'll come back to you, Kina. Let me first bring in Kofi Adams on that point. So looking at the role of the former president, John Dramani Mahama, do you feel this settles it?
Well, as I've said, an elder remains an elder. He's been the leader of the party as president and flag bearer at one point of the development of this party. And I must say, from 2008 till now, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama has been in leadership of the party. He was selected as running mate in 2008. So from that point till now, he's been involved at the very top leadership position of the party. He may not be the leader constitutionally now, but that respect and honor is still given him. And especially when many persons address him as presumptive leader, you are also seeing a leader in him soon. So his voice, his pieces of advice is never taken lightly, especially when it is in sync with what the Council of Elders are also thinking and advising on a matter such as this. So he's intervened, and it gives indication as to who he is and what it is that he can do for his party and the country at large. And for me, I am happy that he did not sit aloof and said, well, I'm not in leadership. It's a matter for the party chairman who is the leader and maybe Council of Elders only as a group to deal with, which is, of course, a member. But he thought it wise to also engage these three affected persons individually. It wasn't only Honorable Muntaka that he engaged. He engaged all of them. Honorable Haruna, Honorable Muntaka, Honorable James Kuti Abeji. And what has been put out there by Honorable Muntaka is a position shared by all these three. And so it's a good thing that he has done, and we are grateful for him for helping to deal with this matter even before today, because many were proposing that the three must come to Parliament today because their thinking was that there's going to be chaos. But thank God we have leaders, we have elders, we have resolved our issues. Today the chamber will be normal. There may be some congratulations here and there. There may be greetings here and there. People may make one comment or the other, but our side is a very solid side that is ready to do the work that we have been assigned by our persons that we represent from our constituency,
right,
and also our party.
This bit before I let you summarize your thoughts about what we can expect. Interesting, Kina, that you brought up the bit about the number of ministers and all that, and the pension. I don't know whether it was Kofi Adams who brought it up or Kina, but for all of you, I just want your quick reflection on this. I recall Dr. Atuforsen in that initial engagement with the media after the announcement had been made that he was the new minority leader, making mention of the fact that the minority would not approve any additional minister from anywhere. We do know the chieftaincy minister has, for good reason, stepped aside. His resignation has been accepted, and Dan Boche has been asked to act in his stead. But when we hear of the pensions minister, that would be an add-on, more of a burden, even as we deliberate on going to the IMF. But putting that side by side with what Dr. Atuforsen said, that they would not give any support for that person, they would not recognize any added minister. Where does this leave this new person? Just a quick response, and then we will take your final comments. I'll start with you, Kofi Adams, then to Kina and to Dr. Kwapo.
I don't know whether the president will have the courage in this situation to create any new ministry. I doubt. I've seen a letter that is asked the Minister for Employment and Labor Relations to take responsibility for SNIT and other matters. I believe he can leave it at that. If he dare bring another minister to be responsible for pension, that will not be approved by this House. Indeed, many of us feel that some ministries should be merging. Look, why should you have, yes, we need to develop rail, but do we need a minister to develop rail network? We had only one minister for transport and a deputy. Look at the aviation industry, the transport industry, the development, the airports expansion, the seaports expansion, the rail project, the Tema to Mpakadan rail project was actually negotiated under just a minister and a deputy when it was just Ministry of Transport.
Right.
So it is only being implemented now. You don't need a minister for rail development, a minister for transport, a minister for aviation to see all these areas develop. Indeed, under John Mahama, communication and information was put together with two deputies. We can do something to save the pace of this country.
All right.
There are ministries that we should be thinking about merging in this critical situation.
Thank you for that quick point. Kina, what do you think about that? Some have said, for example, that even defense and the interior can be merged. Quick take on that before we take your final comments.
I absolutely agree. But look, it's bigger than that. You know, it's about a posture of a leader. In the crisis that we are in, one of the first things the president should himself have offered us to make us even feel better is to say, I am cutting down my government, and to have shown us deep cuts, stuff that were being let go. Instead of, So I agree with Honorable, and these are some of the things where we talk about when I keep coming back to representation because I'm a Diko. But the point is, this is what we need. All Ghanaians, you won't find a single Ghanaian who's saying that our government is not humongous. And humongous and a burden at a time where Ghanaians are heavily burdened and scared about the fate of this country. The president won't even offer that. He won't offer to cut down his government by at least 50% willingly. And he's not even doing it unwillingly. He's not doing it at all. It's been one of the measures a lot of people have talked about. Just a signal to say, I am ready, and I think cutting the public purse and the burden on Ghanaians is one of the things we must do to at least even send a signal that we are ready to do what we must do. We must also sacrifice. While you got us here, while I got us here, I'm going to sacrifice to get us out. There's been no signaling about that.
Right.
There's a lot of work that this new leadership of NDC in Parliament must do. And yes. Yeah.
Let me bring in Dr. Kwapon on that point, and then in some 30 seconds each, we can wrap with our thoughts. But as Kina spoke, Dr. Kwapon, it brought to mind Lazarus Chakwera, the Malawian president. It just brought him to mind because he had, some 30-something ministers, and he's cut it down further to 20-something. I saw that recently. Here, we have over 100 ministers, and who knows whether we're going to add on. Quick take.
I think this is a subject matter that has been raised over and over again about the size of government, the need to cut down. At this point, though, I don't see that. I don't see that happening, and I think it's because from all of the signals that we've seen from the presidency, I don't see any intention. Maybe one of these days it will happen. But at this point, it's not one of the things that I'm banking my hopes on that it would actually happen. Yes, I know at some point the Honorable Finance Minister did announce some changes that they were making in terms of, cutting back on government expenditure, fuel coupons, etc., etc. But in terms of the size, when it comes to the number of ministers, I've not seen any signal that it's something that is going to happen anytime soon.
Final thoughts. I'll start with you, Dr. Kwapon, in some 30 seconds. What do you look forward to as Parliament reconvenes and as we see the new face of the NDC's leadership?
So one of the things that I look forward to is how the Honorable Atuforsen would lead the minority caucus, in holding the executive accountable, in putting up, quote unquote, opposition to the key issues that may come before Parliament. He has a very different demeanor and personality from the Honorable Haruna. And so it will be very interesting to watch and see how that personality plays out in being the new face of the minority caucus in Parliament.
Interesting thoughts, Dr. Kwapon, John Osai Kwapon, ACDD Fellow. Thank you so much for having joined the conversation. For you, Kofi Adams, your summary thoughts?
Well, it's going to be an interesting first meeting. It's going to be a meeting for what we call SONA, State of the Nation Address. Mm-hmm. So we will be expecting to hear from the president where he has brought Ghana to, from where he took it up from. And so we'll be ready for the president. I know from my side, the reshuffles have not ended. We are going to look at some committees because a lot of work is done also at the committee level. And the leadership have promised that they will be looking into reshuffling membership of committees and shift some from one committee to the other where they think that they may be more effective there. And look at the rankings and deputy rankings or chairs and vice chairs of some committees. So it's going to be a meeting that is short, but a lot will be happening. But don't forget also that we are also in the period of our primaries. We are expected to elect our parliamentary candidates by 13th of May 2023. So our side is going to be really, really busy. And so, Odikru, when you don't find us in the chamber, sometimes you must pardon us and not publishers.
that's a direct plea right there. Kofi Adams, thank you so much for having joined the conversation. Kofi Adams is Member of Parliament for Buim. Kina, are you going to accept this truce, so to speak? Oh, have we lost Kina as well? Hello? I think we've lost Kina Likimani as well, but she is Programs Manager with Odikro. All of them joined the conversation on the NDC. But moving on from there, when we return from the break, we're going to be contemplating the domestic debt exchange program. It's come with so many tentacles in terms of problems. Now, we have the individual bondholders who are still insistent that we want no part of this. Some banks have been said to have told some people that, look, this is going to not inure to our benefit. But after what Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta had to say about the need for us to actually get this deal done. He says, when you look at the final newspaper today, let's avoid further strain on the economy. Ofori-Atta rallies all bondholders to join the DDEP. What is it going to mean today, D-Day? We'll reflect on that after the break. Do stay.